What's up, everybody, and welcome to another segment of We Nerd. I am your host, Cassie. Thank you for joining me once again. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that I haven't really thought about and didn't cause me to really pause until I had moved out of New York City, which was the connection that I have with Bollywood. Okay, so growing up in New York City, being West Indian, if you like Bollywood, that is not an issue. That is absolutely okay. It's expected, actually, that you watch Bollywood, you listen to Bollywood music. But then I came out to Virginia, and then everyone was asking me, they're like, how do you know so much about Bollywood? You don't speak Hindi, you're not Hindu, you're not Muslim. How did you even get connected with it? How did this become such a huge part of your life? And then I got to thinking that and understood that many people don't really understand the meaning or the impact that Bollywood had on the Indian diaspora and the world in general. I'm not going to speak for them. I'm not even going to say that I speak for all West Indians. All I know is that I'm going to speak about the experience that I had growing up listening and watching Bollywood. So ever since I was little, I knew that my parents, they would play Indian music. They loved Indian music. And I knew that they would watch movies, but I really didn't understand the significance of it. Or I was just like, this is just what my parents listen to. And then I went to Guyana for a summer to hang out with my aunt. And not just, she was playing it all the time, but also you would walk down the road in certain parts of Guyana and you would hear it blasting on what they would call the big road. Everyone's listening to Indian music, and you would know if there was a new movie out with a new song because they would just be blasting it all day, all night long, until to the point that you get sick of the song, but it was so good. And then I myself started watching a lot more Bollywood movies. One of my all-time favorites was Soldier. That was one of my favorites. And me and my sister, we would just always dance to that song. My mom has endless videos of us just dancing to that song and to those movie songs. It was so much fun, and we just grew up on these movies. And then as we get older, they just became something that you can just rewatch over and over and over, and you never get tired of it. You never do. And why? Why does that happen? And I didn't realize the significance that I had in my life until I had moved away for the first time when I went to England. When I would miss my family, when I would miss my friends, I would just put on a Bollywood movie. And I don't know why, it just gave me so much comfort. And it reminded me of home. It reminded me of sometimes dancing these songs. It would just give me comfort in a way that really nothing else did. Nothing really could have reminded me of home when I was in England other than that. And you just feel that connection. And then I read up on a few articles and things like that about just what it meant. And leave aside, obviously there's that cultural connection that the Indian diaspora has with the Indian subcontinent. But then you even have stories of these famous actors and actresses and even Bollywood singers that would come over to different aspects of the diaspora. So for example, the late Lata Mangeshkar, she actually visited Guyana in the early 1980s. And people would always say that really doesn't make sense. There wasn't why would she just go? But it had meaning. It has meaning. And even up to today, a lot of my friends, they're getting married, they're getting engaged. You would see that they would play Indian music at their weddings. It has a profound impact on us and on me. I personally, my love for Bollywood, it stems from many different things. Sometimes it's there as sentimental value. Other times it's there as a de-stressor. A lot of times if I'm stressed with school, if I'm just stressed in general, I would just put it on, and it's just such a calming mechanism that it's unbelievable. Growing up, I really didn't know much about pop culture. I didn't. But I knew all about the Bollywood drama that was happening, like who was marrying who got with who, like what was happening with this movie, what was happening with that director of that movie. That was what was interesting to me. I didn't really get pop culture. That was not really a big thing on my radar because I just grew up so much with Bollywood. I remember when I was in high school, all I had really listened to growing up, being Christian, my parents, we would listen to gospel, but we also listened obviously to indie music. We listened to chutney music. Every now and again, I would throw in, and as we got older, my sister and I were like soca and dance hall, and then a little bit of R&B we would throw in. Those are my genres of music. And then again, as I went to school, I got more immersed with my friends in different cultures. I learned about Spanish music, and that was really it. So it's still a lot more cultural music. I'm not familiar with American pop culture. I wasn't. I still am not. I don't get a lot of the references. And everyone would be like, but you grew up in America. I'm like, yes, but I didn't have an American upbringing. My upbringing was very much Guyanese. It was very much West Indian. And Bollywood was an aspect of that. I know that we, as a family, my family would always gather on the weekends and we would watch Indian movies together. That was kind of like our bonding. We would also top it off with ice cream from Cold Stone. That was always a great favorite of my family and I. As far as my friends, sometimes when we didn't want to do anything and we'll just be like, hey, we want to see each other, just be like, hey, like come over to my house, watch some Indian movies, or vice versa. If we would go over by their house, we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We just throw on an indie movie and we'll still like talk and like hang out and things like that, because a lot of the times we knew the movie, we would know the movie by heart. And my friends and I, we don't know Hindi like that, but we knew word for word the songs, we know word for word quotes from this movie because we grew up loving Bollywood so much. Now, as a product of the Indian diaspora, Bollywood stands as a connection for me personally to not just my roots, but also my family's roots. It brings such joy to my family members, to myself. And then when I haven't visited Guyana in years. I believe the last time was 2012. I'm not entirely sure, but I haven't visited Guyana in years. But I know that whenever I did go and visit, it wasn't too hard or too difficult to find out what was the newest Indian song or newest Indian movie. And not only would they be blasting it down the road and things like that, it would also be on TV. And it is a major part of Guyanese culture, Guyanese West Indian culture. And I won't even say just the West Indians. You would also have the Afro-Caribbeans also fully aware of Indian music. And as I got older, especially when I went to England, I learned that Indian movies and Bollywood in general was a huge part of African culture. It's not just Nollywood, which by the way, I also love Nollywood, but I didn't grow up with Nollywood. Nollywood came on later in my life, but Bollywood, they were also familiar with Bollywood. And it's something that has transcended thanks to inventions such as Netflix and Prime Video, which is where you can find predominantly Indian movies nowadays. It has spread to other cultures. And in America, I had some of my friends who I would meet through college, and I would put them on to Indian movies and tell them like, hey, watch this one. But sometimes you watch them in chronological order because they have to watch it so you can appreciate the beauty of it. So for example, if they wanted to watch this movie called Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham, they can't understand just how amazing that movie is on its own without watching Kuch Kuch Hota Hai first. And all I know is that Bollywood just meant home. It meant comfort, and it just meant smiles all around. And that's what Bollywood means to me. I know it didn't make sense just because on the outside, culturally, I don't speak Hindi. I am not Hindu, but Bollywood has had a profound aspect on my life, and it's been a huge part of myself growing up. And even today, I still watch new movies endlessly. And with that is the end of another segment of We Nerd. Thank you so much for joining me, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye!